Alright, hey, Shalom Akim, Shalom. First and foremost, as always, before we get started, giving all praise, honor, and glory unto the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, the elders of Great Millstone that have taught us His truth and that rule well. And peace and blessings go out to the hopeful members of the elect, scattered throughout the four winds of the earth, that are in the hopes of receiving salvation and mercy during the time of Jacob's trouble, and that are worshiping the Heavenly Father in sincerity, in spirit, and in truth. Alright. Now in this lesson, this will be kind of like an ongoing series that I want to start doing, entitled These Shall Hate the Whore. Alright, and pretty much in this series I want to give updates concerning the whole breakup that's occurring within the beast system, which is encapsulated within NATO and the EU. Alright, which in other words are pretty much countries that are giving their power unto America for the purpose of, having America's influence be spread throughout the four winds of the earth. Alright. In other words, these countries are termed as a vassal state. Alright. And as we know, a vassal state, matter of fact, let's look that up real quick. Alright. It says, under a quick Google AI overview definition, it says, a vassal state is a subordinate political entity that maintains some internal autonomy, but is dominated by a stronger, dominant state, owing its military support, tribute, or other obligations in exchange for protection. A relationship common in ancient empires and feudal systems, though today the term often describes client states, satellite states, or puppet states with limited sovereignty, which in other words can be termed as NATO and the EU. Alright? But right now we're living in a time where you have these countries fleeing from this treaty for the sake of recovering from the set injuries that America has put upon them based upon certain tariffs that, Esau has been putting upon countries like Russia and China. Alright? And one of the main countries that I want to talk about within the 10 toes is France. Alright, when you go into the history concerning this whole tariff war that Trump has induced upon the earth, alright, it's been causing France to go through hell. Alright, this is under another quick Google search where I put, how has the tariff war affected France? And it says the tariff wars have significantly impacted France, particularly its crucial wine, spirits, and luxury goods sectors, leading to massive export drops and hundreds of millions in losses, disrupting supply chains and causing job cuts in regions like Cognac, and slowing economic growth by creating uncertainty and reducing overall trade with the US, a major market. France and the EU have pushed back, viewing these tariffs as blackmail and a tool to influence policy, threatening their own retaliatory measures. Alright, so you can see the set vibration of what's going on over there in France, man. The whole means as to why there's so many protests and riots going on is because of the set tariff war that America has put forth, And although America isn't facing any kind of, negative outcome out of it, a lot of vassal states within NATO and the EU are catching a lot of hell, And because of that, now you have these countries putting up the vibration of hating the whore. Alright? This was, it says the 24th of January at the World Economic Forum. It says, breaking. French President Macron says China is welcome in Europe after mocking us on tariffs. Let's hear what the French President Macron has to say. Emmanuel Macron, if I'm not mistaken. There you go.
Is welcome. But what we need is more Chinese foreign direct investment in Europe, in some key sectors to contribute to our growth, to transfer some technologies, and not just to export towards Europe some devices or products which sometimes don't have the same standards or are much more subsidized as the one being produced in Europe. China is welcome, but what we need.
So you see the vibration of what this dude Macron is speaking on. He wants China to be now involved within the whole, world of commerce, in the region of Europe. All right. Now, when you sift that through America's ears, America ain't they ain't with that. You know, the whole reason as to why America just took Venezuela was because China was making trades with Venezuelan oil. You know, so this shows you the vibration of what America is on, and the fact that you have a French president, all right, someone that is associated within the beast system, making a talking point where they want to now have China within that system of having their currency flow, all right, shows the idea of them being not in the same accord, for the lack of a better term. All right, there's a division. Okay, and like I said, the main reason that this division is occurring is because France is catching out, you know, and they need some other country to make trades with for the purpose of their economy flowing. All right. So from here, let's get a quick precept in the book of Obadiah, chapter 1 and 7. All right. It says, all the men of thy matter of fact, let me start at 6. It says, how are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. All right. And as a matter of fact, just for the sake of getting a little more meat off this bone, let's look up the word prevailed. All right. That takes us back to the Strong's H3201. The word there is yakol. And it says to overcome, endure, have power, be able. Be able to gain or accomplish, to endure, to reach. All right. Overcome, be victor. To have ability, have strength. And this is what a lot of the nations within NATO are trying to do right now, man. You know, again, within the process of them trusting America and, you know, kind of just going through the motions of seeing what the hell they're doing, they now see that they're getting the short end of the stick, you know, and they're fed up with it, man. You know, no long are they gonna take this set destroying mountain to mess up their country. All right. These nations are now in a spirit where they want to do something about it, man. You know, and by these other strong countries gaining momentum, case in point, China, Russia, what's another one? India, as they're gaining more traction within the industry of economics and other franchises, they're now turning to them for power, man. All right. So you see the said dichotomy that's happening within the said fulfillment of what Daniel saw in the 2nd chapter of his book concerning the 10 toes, all right, being part iron and part clay. You know, there may be a period of time where France was one with America, and they did have certain times where they saw eye to eye, you know, but over a process of time, that clay is going to start coming off of that iron, all right? And you see that being fulfilled as we speak right now, man. You know, and as these tensions continue to escalate, where America is making all these different out-of-pocket moves, like taking Venezuela, you know, he's talking about taking Canada now, he's talking about taking Mexico, Chile. These NATO nations are going to start getting up out of there, man. All right? This is Habakkuk chapter 2 and 5, and we're going to read it in the NLT. It says, wealth is treacherous, and the arrogant are never at rest. They open their mouths as wide as the grave, and like death, they are never satisfied. All right? In their greed, they have gathered up many nations and swallowed many people. And this is the set outcome of what Esau has done by way of the tariff war, man. You know, the reason why the whole tariff war happened was because Esau didn't like China and these other countries making money and them not getting a piece of it. You know, and because of that, now other countries got to suffer, a set penalty for it. Case in point, France, Germany, Italy, and many of the other countries that are found within that European region. All right. Verse 6, it says, but soon their captives will taunt them. They will mock them, saying, what sorrow awaits you thieves? Now you will get what you deserve. you've become rich by extortion. Now, real quick, when we look up this word extortion, it means the practice of obtaining something, especially money, through force or threats. And who does that sound like in this period of time, man? America, man. Esau Edom, the so-called white man who has pretty much done extortion throughout his whole career to get him where he's at today. You know? So from here, let me actually I think that was the point that I wanted in this chapter. Yep, it says, you've become rich by extortion, but how much longer can this go? Alright. Now from here, I wanted to get this real quick off of ChatGPT, where I asked it, during the time of the death of Alexander the Greek, when he passed his dynasty to Seleucus, Cassander, Lysimachus, Ptolemy, how did these dynasties treat the surrounding nations that were vassal states to them? Through the rigorous decrees, did any nations ever revolt against them? And as we know in history, yes, they did. Alright? But for the sake of just getting a bit of history, and linking the things that have happened in the past and comparing it to now, alright, we see that the same thing is happening wherever these Edomites go, man. Alright? And you can read about this history within the book of First Maccabees, the first chapter. Alright? It says, after Alexander the Great died in 323 BCE, his empire was divided among his top generals, often called the Diaduchi. The major kingdoms that emerged were the Seleucid Empire, the Ptolemy Empire, the Antignoid, which can fall under the category of Cassander, alright, and the Lysimachids Empire, alright. These rulers inherited lands full of independent-minded peoples, the Israelites, Egyptians, Greeks, Anatolian tribes, Persians, and they enforced control, in a way that often created revolt and resentment. Okay? Let me read that part again. They enforced control in a way that often created revolt and resentment. What comes to mind? The Tariff War and the many other actions that Esau set forth when it comes down to trying to gain some kind of power in the earth. Alright? The countries that give their power to the beast end up catching hell too. So let's read a couple of the bullet points that it gives us. It says how they ruled their vassal states. Number 1, Hellenization. They pushed Greek culture, language, religion, education, political systems into the conquered lands. Greek became the official language of administration. Alright? And as our beloved Apostle Jahar has made the point, when it comes to you wanting to fall within the department of, flying an airplane and a craft, the language that you have to learn is English. Alright? Matter of fact, real quick, just for the sake of edification, let's look that up. Yep, it says this statement reflects the reality that English is the mandatory global language of aviation for safety, requiring pilots and controllers to achieve ICAO level 4 proficiency for clear communication, but it's also a popular quote misattributed to various figures. But the point being is yes, alright, you gotta learn English. If you're a Moabite, Ammonite, whatever, you must learn that language, man. And in these terms, instead of it being called Hellenization, it's colonization. Okay? Second bullet point. Heavy taxation and military control. It says conquered peoples paid tribute to fun armies and palace elites. Alright? Garrisons were placed in major cities to ensure loyalty. It says local rulers could stay in power only if fully compliant. This strengthened control but fueled frequent uprisings. And this is the exact scenario that we see playing out right in front of us, man. Alright? So from here I want to go down and get into this next question that I asked it. It says, can you link this same rebellion from other nations against the Diaduchis to what's happening to America right now, where you have many countries no longer conforming to the American authority. Now, from here, let's go down and get this point where it says modern pushback against American influence. Today, many countries are pushing back against U.S. authority or influence because they want greater geopolitical independence. They disagree, they disagree with U.S. led policies such as trade, security, intervention, and sanctions. They seek new alliances, China, Russia, and regional blocs, which is what we just said a couple of minutes ago. All right? They resent perceived coercion through economic pressure or military presence. This resistance takes the form of diplomatic realignment, BRICS expansion, which is something that you start, when it comes down to certain talking points like economic problems, military problems. BRICS is something that constantly comes up now, man. It says reduce reliance on U.S.-led institutions. This is why France made this talking point, man. All right? But best believe America is going to have a response that doesn't play in the liking of what this dude is talking about. Okay? And as a matter of fact, this is a good time to play this video. This dude, Stephen Miller, it says, Stephen Miller goes on white supremacist colonizer rant on CNN over Venezuela and Greenland. All right? Now again, America is in a spirit where they're now pretty much taking whatever the fuck they want. They started off with Venezuela, and now they're going into Greenland. And what did France just do in Greenland? He put some of his soldiers in Greenland, in opposition of what America's doing. Okay? So let's listen to this damn demon, man. Ugly ass Edomite. Looks like my thumb.
That is true. The United States of America is running Venezuela. By definition, that's true. Jake, we live in a world in which you can talk all you want about international niceties and everything else. But we live in a world, in the real world, Jake, that is governed by strength, that is governed by force, that is governed by power. By definition, we are in charge. Because we have the United States military stationed outside the country. We set the terms and conditions. We have a complete embargo on all of their oil and their ability to do commerce. So for them to do commerce, they need our permission. For them to...
In order for them to do commerce, what do they need? They need America's permission. Okay? So if France, if France thinks that they could do this, they're sadly mistaken, man. They need their daddy's permission to do so. Alright? Matter of fact, let me get a quick preset, man. Alright? Because this illustrates the idea of who America is when it comes down to sifting it through the Bible. Alright? Esau. Matter of fact, not Genesis 27. Genesis 25. Where Isaac gives Esau his blessing. Okay, yeah, you know what? I was right. Genesis 27. Tripping. That's when they was born. Yep, Genesis 27, and I'll start at 38. And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. He was butthurt. Alright. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. Alright. So this gives us the idea of what? The earth is given into the hand of who? The wicked. Okay. And how does the wicked reinstore his dominion? By way of his blessing being the sword. Verse 40. And by thy sword shalt thou live, and shall serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. Alright? But the point being is that Esau has been granted the blessing of having not only this present earth and heaven, but the way of how he would govern it would be through violence. Alright? And this is exactly what this dude Stephen Miller is saying. Okay? And it's getting to a point where this violence is irritating everybody. You know? Proverbs 29 and 2. When the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. Alright? And in particular, the people that are mourning right now are the NATO countries. Alright? And pursuant to Jeremiah 51 and 7, the nations are mad. And they're getting ready to do something about it, man. So let's keep listening.
Them to be able to run an economy, they need our permission. So the United States is in charge. The United States is running the country during this transition period. The United States is using its military to secure our interests unapologetically in our hemisphere. We're a superpower.
Man, the United States is using their military to control and to pretty much instate things so that it plays out in their favor. Come on now.
Under President Trump, we are going to conduct ourselves as a superpower. It is absurd that we would allow a nation in our own backyard to become the supplier of resources to our adversaries, but not to us, to hoard weapons from our adversaries, to be able to be positioned as an asset against the United States rather than on behalf of the United States.
Sovereign countries should be able to do what they want to do.
The Monroe Doctrine and the Trump Doctrine is all about securing the national interests of America. For years,
And that's what it's all about, man. To secure the national interest of America. Not the national interest of the agreements that they made with the NATO countries. No. Everything plays out in the interest of Esau, and it's always been like that, man. Alright? And the countries are now waking up to that reality, and they're like, you know what? Fuck this nigga. Let me holler at China. Let's see what they're about. Let me go to Russia. Let's see, you know, if they have room for me to make some kind of deal with them. Because I'm fed up with how America is treating me. You know? These shall hate the whore, man. Okay?
We sent our soldiers to die in deserts in the Middle East to try to build them parliaments, to try to build them democracies, to try to give them more oil, to try to give them more resources. The future of the free world, Jake, depends on America being able to assert ourselves and our interests without apology. This whole period that happened after World War II, where the West began apologizing and groveling and begging
I don't even
and
know
engaging these
honestly
mass
what you're talking
reparation
about right
schemes.
now.
It's a
He's butthurt. Okay, but again, this is the spirit of what Esau has always been on. You know? We're just living in a time where he's making it more transparent. He ain't hiding it. So let's get this real quick in Revelation 17, and that'll be you know, the gist of this lesson. I don't want to make it too long. But like I said, man, this is going to be an ongoing series, Lord willing. I continue to give updates concerning this whole catastrophe that's happening within NATO, man. You know, it's a very beautiful time to be alive. Alright? It says, Revelation 17 and 15. And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples, multitudes, and nations and tongues. Alright? Which this whore is talking about America. Alright? The daughter of Babylon. And the 10 horns which thou sawest, NATO and the EU, upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Let's look up that word hate in the Greek. Let's see what that is all about. Where is it at? Am I tripping? Damn. Okay, it's in the 16th word. Salakia. I was looking at 15. That takes us back to Strong's G 3404, Messiel. Alright, and it says to hate, pursue with hatred, detest. Okay? And this is how the world feels right now with how America's moving, man. They detest how America responds within this whole, you know, tension with them pretty much losing. You know? America's economy right now is fucked up. And within these whole, again, the whole incident with Venezuela shows how desperate America is, And a lot of these countries hate how they're moving. And it's going to get to a tipping point where these nations get fed up. Alright? Why do you think when it comes to you joining BRICS, Russia is giving out free missiles to those that join? It's to fulfill what we're reading about, man. Verse 17. For the Most High has put in their hearts to fulfill His will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast. And that's the estate of what we've been seeing by way of NATO. Alright? As we always bring out, prior to NATO being called NATO, alright, it was called the European Economic Committee. Alright? And the whole means of that existing was for the purpose of them creating some kind of alliance within the set position of the outcome of World War II. Alright? But now we're starting to see that agreement ain't really holding its, America in particular, isn't holding their weight of keeping that, agreement locked in. Okay? So reading that again, it says, for the Most High has put in their hearts to fulfill His will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of the Most High shall be fulfilled. And that's what we're living through right now, man. The word of the Heavenly Father is being fulfilled, and NATO is crumbling like a cookie that you dip in milk. Okay? Over time, once you dip that cookie in milk, man, it starts crumbling. It's a slow process, but it ain't gonna hold once it feels that, moisture from the milk. Okay? But, that's pretty much the point in that verse. Let me see. I have one more verse or another precept that I have lined up in my little notes here, so I might as well get it. Sirach 14 and 5. It says, he that is evil to himself, to whom will he be good? Okay? And here it is. France, alright, which is supposedly a part of the beast system. Once upon a time, again, America did look at France eye to eye. But now we're looking at a time to where that is no more. And America really doesn't give a fuck about them. So, to whom will he be good? He shall not take pleasure in his goods. Alright? So yeah, man, these things are going to continue to escalate. We're going to see, more of what Yahushua told us in the Gospels concerning wars and rumors of wars. And it's all going to ultimately lead up to what we understand as the third woe being fulfilled, man. Alright? But like we always say, prior to that, we got to see the fulfillment of the mark of the beast. Alright? So as we see these things coming to pass, man, understand that we're that close to the fulfillment and us being put within the spirit of being tested for the hour of temptation. Alright? So, yeah, man, be ready. Alright? We're at the end of this thing, Akim, so continue to stay prayed up, fast if you need to, study, get your hustle on, and yeah, man, get ready to get out of here. Alright, but with that, man, as always, I want to end off by giving all praise to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings unto the elect. Shalom.